and the boy was born blind. So his teacher one day in school says, Steveland, I hear a little mouse in the classroom, and you should help me find the mouse. And everybody was very surprised because he was the only one who was blind. I mean, why would a blind kid help the teacher find the mouse? So Steveland immediately found the mouse, and then the teacher told him, you have amazing ears. Your hearing is, you are gifted. You are a very, very gifted little boy. And the little boy grew up and became Stevie Wonder, which is one of the greatest musicians of our of the history. So like words are so important.
I was wondering where does, because Miruna Ursache, I was wondering what's the origin? Where do you come from?
So I'm Romanian.
Ah, yeah,
I was born and raised here, and then when I was 20 something, I moved to Belgium because my parents, well, half of my family is in Belgium, and I was going back and forth since forever. So yeah, I moved to Belgium. I uh, did the equivalence of my law degree at ULB uh, because I am a well, I'm a jurist, a legal advisor. That's my background, the first one. And then so I did the equivalence at ULB, Université Libre de Bruxelles. And then well, I was working for Deloitte, and then from Deloitte, I went to BNP Paribas, and from there I went to Solvay because I wanted to completely change my professional path. So I did that. I was not happy, and it's very interesting because that's when I started to actually develop my like finding my path. So we do things because we have to, or because we're told to do things, and because you have to choose. I think we're very young to choose at 18 for the rest of our lives. So I changed it at 33. Yeah. So
yeah. Nice. And you say you found your path. So what is your path and how
well,
did you find it?
I think that I was working for Deloitte, and I was doing financial consultancy in VAT, international VAT, and that was, well, European VAT, and that was um, hard because I'm not a numbers person. I mean, I'm not. I that actually, I really think that everything that we learn in life actually comes in handy at some point. So it's very important that we constantly develop ourselves. I believe that. So for sure, that really developed that a part of my brain who was not into numbers, and but. That was not something that I was feeling happy about because, um, it's about bringing more money to companies that are already making a lot of money, which is great. I mean, okay, this is how the world goes round and round. That it makes sense. But I wasn't feeling good about my life. So I went from that to BNP Paribas, and there I worked on an IT project that was again weird because it was not my thing either. Um, what was very interesting was that actually they were implementing this IT product, an expense management tool, in more than 100 entities of BNP Par around the world. And we started with pilot entities located in well, Paris, the headquarters, and New York and London, and we had back offices in Casablanca and Mumbai, and everything was super international. And I was familiar with that because in Deloitte I was already working in an international department, but that was even more interesting because we were dealing with people really working in those countries, living there. So you could see the differences. And I was in charge with the communication part of the project, which was very good. And I fell in love with communication completely. If until then I was just flirting with that because I've been told since forever that I'm very I have this easiness in dealing with people, and okay. But then it started to mean something. So while working on the project, it was quite. I moved from 14 hours a day and high pressure at work, corporate style, to an environment where things were moving very slowly. And to me, that was very disturbing because
You
it
mean
was
from Deloitte to BNP?
empty.
Yeah,
Yes, because it was a project that was taking a lot of time to settle and to get all the actors to talk about and agree on things, so it was going very slowly. And during that time I wrote a children's book that was published in France and then in Romania. And then I thought, okay, I have to do something that is obviously that should like nourish this artistic side of myself, or at least something that has more to do with people. So from there I moved to Solvay. I did a master's, and then I started to work in marketing as a content manager. And in the meantime, I developed this communication courses because uh, I think communication is everything, like everything,
yeah,
everything. Yes. So, and the more I do that, the more I deal with people, the more I work with people, the more I get into that, I realize that it's really everything. And it's a shame we should teach that in school when we grow. So, yeah.
yeah. And you're still doing the content marketing too? So,
Yes, yes, yes.
still
I'm.
working as a content marketeer, and then you have your
Yes.
own business in
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
And so, what does a communication coach do?
Well, the thing is that I started that um, because I took theater classes. And while taking theater classes, I realized how um, this getting out of your comfort zone, well, of course it's true, but this is a very difficult thing to actually achieve because we never do that. Like when we I don't know, we have a training, for instance, and then somebody comes and teaches people things, and they write it down, and then the next day it's gone. Because, well, this is, I mean, we can only learn when we actually experiment things, when we do them.
Agree.
Yeah, I've always done that. I had to do things in order to remember them and learn them.
And
So
integrate them. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So I realized I could witness how people would change through those theater classes. Well, they would come to, I don't know, get more self confident, or do something fun. And but everybody, we all have our luggage, emotional luggage. We all have our past. So when you do that, it comes out. So I realized that I could actually integrate a lot of the games and techniques, because it's very fun environment, So I could integrate those in this kind of communication uh, uh, workshops that could actually help people understand how communication changes lives completely. And this is it. It just everything came together at some point, and I tried to give them a logical path, because um, I could talk about. Please stop me, because I could talk
No,
for
no,
hours. um,
no, I love what you're saying because at some point, I'm making videos for my course and sometimes YouTube videos.
yeah,
And in the beginning, it was really, really hard. It was hard to be
yeah,
myself in
yes,
front of the
yes.
camera. And at a certain point, I decided to take improvisation classes
Okay,
because I like felt like I was a little bit frozen inside of me, and I had to get
let
out. So
go.
I completely understand
Yeah,
the link between theater classes
yeah,
and communication.
yeah.
So
It's
please
not.
continue. Yeah.
I'm not only so the core is indeed those theater games techniques and so on. But there are so many others, so many other techniques that I use, like rhetoric, all kinds of devices that are used in rhetoric, and we um,
And what do you mean? What is rhetoric?
for well the art of giving a speech and to use all kind of what they call devices, like for instance a metaphor, alliteration, so all these kind of mechanisms in order to pass a message and to convince people. And of course there are some people who actually well, some people have it, they are born with that, and it's a sad thing to say, but for instance Hitler was an amazing speaker, because I've read what somebody said once. So there was this woman who was attending one of his speeches, and she said, I was there for like 3 or 4 hours, and I was transformed while hearing the guy speak. And then I got out, and I realized that I couldn't remember one single idea of anything that like of the entire speech, because that he had this amazing gift. But then um, for like for instance Martin Luther King, like his speech is amazing, and it's like this plethora of rhetoric devices, and it's so beautiful when you start to understand how to use them and to actually apply it, and and see if it's something, because not everybody is a speaker, and we shouldn't be speakers because we why, but we can definitely use some of the techniques in order to improve communication. And I think it's important. So rhetoric is another thing I use. Psychology a lot, and I'm not a psychologist, and I will never I don't want to be a psychologist, and but there are some things that I think are very, very important. For instance, I don't think that we can, like you say, we cannot communicate properly, or in order to communicate better, we definitely need to know a bit more about ourselves, because I think that we communicate. So, at least in my opinion, I think that, like I said, communication is everything, but it starts in the morning with ourselves. The first thoughts that we have in the morning, this is communicating to yourself. And this is something that triggers a lot of what we are about. It's like depending on where we are in our lives, communication to ourselves could be kinder or not, or so it starts there. When we get to know ourselves better, we become kinder, we have more empathy towards other people, because we understand that we have our flaws, and we understand what is it that makes us special. We understand uh, which are the areas of improvement, what can we do to exceed, to grow, to evolve, to become better people. um, and we also understand which are our limitations. I will never be a singer, and it took me a very long time to accept that. But no, I will never be. I don't know, Shakira. So okay, so when we learn which are these limitations, um, we gain more self confidence, because this is who I am, and that's it. So I can only offer that. Um, we I think we become more tolerant and more like it's everything is linked. It's not, we cannot just try to communicate better and use a technique. Okay, you I don't
Yeah.
know, the diction, or no. It's all about who we are and how we can evolve, develop ourselves in order to better communicate, to become better leaders, because it's really about that, and we have better lives, because it's not, nobody will ever start communicating better in his her professional relationships, and not in the personal life. So
Yeah.
it all
No,
becomes
I agree. And what I see and what I also teach to my leaders is the importance of alignment with your body, your emotions, and
yeah,
your words. Because if you're saying things and your body and emotions are not aligned with you, with what you say, or you're not in touch with your emotions, or it doesn't come across.
Yeah.
It doesn't come across, and people are inspired and follow you because you are authentic and because you have this alignment.
Yeah, authenticity is something that is vital. I mean, I don't think we can ever convince people to join us in our, I don't know, dreams, in accomplishing them, unless we believe that ourselves, first of all. I mean, this is,
Yeah,
um,
exactly. And believing it really in your core. Huh? It's not
yeah.
authenticity, is not just saying the truth, or it's really expressing your feelings and what you feel.
Yes, and that this is the link with knowing ourselves better, because when we are authentic, that means that we are ready to expose ourselves with our weaknesses, to be vulnerable. I'm sure you know those amazing TED talks of
From
Brené
Brené
Brown
Brown, yeah.
about vulnerability, and this is something that, I mean, we um, people are taught to, we I mean, when we're kids, it's like, don't cry, don't so we
Don't
grow
be
grow
angry,
up
don't
like that.
cry, be
Yeah,
strong. Yeah.
exactly. Whereas it should be, this is the way you feel that, but doesn't mean that this is how you are. You just feel that for the moment because, and then, so it's, yeah, I totally agree. It's such an important thing to be able to have this alignment. And I have this. So in one of the workshops, because each workshop, the way I created these workshops is more or less 2 hours when I do the entire course, so that um, I have enough time to go through things. And we talk about the filters in communication, because, well, basically it's easy. So you have you have a sender, the person that encodes the message they say, and then you have the message and the recipient, and it looks easy. And then we have what I like to call these filters, meaning that, like I said before, we are all the result of everything that built us. So we might have difficult childhoods, trauma, critical parents, bullying in school. So we don't know, but each of us brings these filters when when decoding the messages. But I think the same thing happens when we also communicate a message. And this is something that I think leaders should really pay attention to, is how are you going to pass this message through, and to whom you're doing that, and who are the people in your team, because it starts with the internal communication. um,
Yeah, and this filter, it's for me, we call it also interpretations. This
mhm,
filter or these interpretations, they're influenced by your emotions, by your body, by the stories you tell yourself, by your culture, by all
exactly.
your pains or your suffering as a child or bullying, but
Yeah,
also with the mood of a whole country or a whole organization. These all influence these interpretations, and we are not aware that we put actions in place based on these interpretations
yeah,
and not on the facts.
exactly, exactly. I couldn't agree more. I call this internal external filters, because the external filters are, like you said, uh, everything that's around us. It could be a certain political context or social context, or the pandemic, working from home. So but the internal filters, these are they could be a difficult thing to address, because we don't always, I mean, we could spend our entire lifetime running away from understanding uh, what's going on. And this is something that will lead to I don't know, forever filter that will forever influence, impact, vitiate our communication. And I think that um, this is delicate because how are you going to deal with that? You need to be very brave to face your own your own scars or demons or whatever is hidden there. And I'm not saying that everybody's like this, but for sure we are emotions. We are humans. We are made
Yeah.
of emotions. So as soon as we recognize them, identify, and learn how to, you know, uh, deal, master them, manage that, it will just get easier. So,
Yeah, it's funny because with almost every person I talk to, whether it's about innovation or being a good leader, or about communication, it
yeah,
always comes back to you have to work on yourself. You have to work on yourself and dig deep and go deep inside you to understand your
yeah,
filters, like you say it, or your armor, or your defense mechanisms
yeah.
that filter everything through. And then
Exactly.
once you do that work, you can also better understand the ones from the other person you're talking to.
Yes, and be more tolerant about that. I will give you an example. So there was this. There's a story somebody told me um, about an architect girl working in a very good firm, and she had a pitch for a client. So she did an amazing job. They won the client. It was, you know, perfect in almost every way, except for one little thing. So her manager after that told her that, on that slide, maybe those numbers. So, and her manager, because this is how she got into my communication workshop, her manager told me it's crazy because she could only remember that. I mean, she would only focus on the little tiny negative thing, although everything was amazing, and she kind of blocked all the positive and got stuck in the constructive critique that she received. And this is a filter. This is something that we don't realize that it impacts us. Something that, like I said, maybe a critical parent, maybe she's perfectionist, maybe she was very,
Or just school, just school. You
yeah,
have like good grades, you have like of the 10 grades that you have, 9 of them are really excellent, and then you have one that isn't good, and that's where the attention goes.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, education is a whole is a topic that I mean, I think that we are so behind in terms of how children should be educated.
Yeah,
But
completely agree.
yeah, it's
Especially how, yeah, it's not adapted anymore to our society, and it doesn't help the children understand them better. And I think
yeah,
that's also why now in the lockdown of COVID, so many children suffer because they are not armed to deal with whatever they are feeling.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I first, so when I started to do the equivalence of my law degree in Brussels. I was raised in Romania, and it's, you do good in school, and don't talk back to your teacher. Don't. So basically, I grew up just remaining silent, and it was um, very unusual to have debates. Now it's completely different, but when I grew up, it was like that. And I arrived at ULB, and then students would ask questions, and then I was thinking, okay, that was really a stupid question. And then I realized, okay, nobody cares, and nobody judges that person for asking a stupid question that I considered, because I had this judgmental side, of course, that I was, so it's very interesting how difficult can be to get rid of that. And first of all, you need to realize, to identify that problem, and then to address it. So yeah, I think education is still we're far behind
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah, everywhere. But Yeah, there are some countries that are a little bit ahead, but not that much. And in Belgium is really, really behind in terms of
Yeah, Romania.
mindset and I'm not saying really knowledge, but really mindset and
Yeah,
how to be happy and successful in today's times. That's how we
exactly.
should educate
Yeah,
our people, our pupils. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And you also specializes in cultural differences.
Yeah, I love that. So I have two. I created two courses. So the first one is basically a course that is uh, for private individuals. So whoever wants to learn to enhance their communication skills can do that. And then this is where I talk about we go through self-awareness exercises and games and um, we talk about cognitive distortions, which I think is amazing because I while studying that for my courses, I realized that I'm still using so many. I got rid of so many, but I use a lot. For instance, um, I have to, you have to, you should, and this is very
I
very
don't
bad
have a
because
choice.
yes, all this pressure that you put, all this kind of mechanism, speech mechanism that we have with ourselves and with others, and we just pass them on to other people. So
I
I
loved, I saw this quote once. It was stop shooting yourself, not shooting, but shooting, I should do this, I
exactly,
should do that. And I loved
yes,
it, stop
yeah,
shooting yourself.
yeah, because we do it all the time, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and I'm working with that on a constant basis because I have to, yeah, because I have to get rid of the should. So this is the private. So this private this course towards private individuals focuses on personal development and then goes slowly through communication types, communication techniques, and so on. And now the business one has an entire workshop dedicated to the cultural differences. However, I also think like communication is everything, that culture is everything. Because I said, okay, it's one thing that, you live in Belgium and I now live in Romania and maybe in, I don't know, in a couple of years I will be in another country. It matters. However, I think that culture is also about being millennial or Generation Z, or being a parent or not. Um, Political convictions, religious convictions, like everything is culture and everything. That's why we are very different. Even when we work in the same company, in the same city, in the same country, we are still very different. Not to mention the emotional
Past.
barrage
Yeah.
that we talked about. So the reason I actually I created this particular workshop is because, so like I said, I have worked almost my entire career in international environments. And only once we had a training about how to lead in international environments. And that was because Belgium was going through a very tough period when there was no government for a couple of years. And that was something that would reflect in the on the relationships at work. So we had this training, but we uh, that was an international, completely international department. We came from all over the world, and we had to understand, and nobody came to tell us that.
Yeah.
To we had to understand by ourselves that Spanish people will arrive. I had a lot. I still have a lot of my friends, Spanish friends who would come at work at 10, 11, because this is how they are. This is culture. It's really in their culture to take their time and have a coffee and breakfast and then come to work. And then they would stay and work until 9 or 10 in the evening. Whereas, I don't know, people from the the Netherlands would come early in the morning and, would leave at
Or I
5.
would remember also the Indian people who always say yes. And they say yes, and you have to learn to identify, is this a yes, I understand you, and yes, I'm polite with you, or is
Yeah.
this a yes, we will do it? So there was
Yes,
a huge difference,
huge.
and big IT problems because of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We at some point we started to outsource part of the activities in India. So I was there for 3 weeks, a month in Hyderabad, and then I was giving a training, and there were some, I don't know, 10 people in the training room, and I would explain, and they would go like this, all of them. And I really thought that they didn't understand what I was saying. And I was feeling so bad because I was thinking that the training, the content was bad, so I asked, and one of the girls said, no, 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 to us, this is, what is this for you, just, and I was, okay, so you actually understand what I'm saying. Yeah, 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 don't worry. We're proving you. Okay. So I know we are so different. And it's not only a matter of gestures and this kind of work dynamics that are already so they could completely ruin a business deal if you don't know them.
Yeah,
And but it's also the behind, like some cultures, they would only negotiate while having a glass of wine, or better negotiate after work when we they need to become closer, a dinner, and
yeah,
share personal personal
yeah. And
aspects.
and my mother, for instance, she's Dutch, and so I live there, and I have a lot of Dutch friends.
Yeah, yeah,
And one of those friends, he became a director here in Belgium. And
okay,
he told me I really had to learn to understand the culture, because in the Netherlands, when you're in a meeting and you say, we're going to do this, does everybody agree? And there will be discussion, and then everybody agrees, then everybody agrees. But he said in Belgium, they don't say anything in the meeting, during the meeting. And I say, everybody agrees. Okay, they don't say anything. And then afterwards, they didn't agree because they were talking in little groups about the thing, and I had to do a lot of work after the meeting because
yeah,
it wasn't. And there are so many things.
yeah,
Or my colleague from, or my boss at the time from England, when he would say, for instance, that's interesting, my colleagues would say, oh, he agreed, he said it's interesting. And I had to say, no, when an
uh,
English people says it's interesting, it means it's rubbish, don't do it. So
exactly, exactly.
you really have all these, even the words don't mean the same thing.
Yes.
So
Yes, and you know what? My entire course, so like both courses, it's not necessarily about, because I we can never teach like all the
the
you
different
know
cultures or
cultural differences and so on. But I think it's important that we become aware of that. It's you deal with people in a certain country, just dig a little deep and
and
see.
check.
Yes, what could go wrong? What is it? How they um, how are the decision taken? For instance, in so it's very important that we learn to be curious, actually, because this is like the first thing, just to be curious, not assuming that what we say or that our way of doing is the right one, because yeah, could be, but the other person might think the same exact same thing. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And because there are always three conversations when you're talking with one person. There isn't only one conversation between you and that person. There is also your conversation in your head and the conversation of the other
absolutely,
person in his or her head.
absolutely. I use this game that is from theater, uh, that I borrowed from theater. It's called the interview, and I love it because it really gets, so in theater is used to get people used to being somebody else. So it goes like this. I am sitting in front of the group, and then people would ask me questions about myself. Okay, what's your name, Miruna? How old are you? Where do you have a brother, sister? La la la. And then at some point, at a certain gesture that the moderator makes, um, I slowly switch towards somebody else. And then people ask questions, and I am forced to answer from somebody else's uh, life position shoes completely. So, and this is something that is very interesting because I can see people, they just stop because they, you know, they would reply, they have an answer, but they realize this is not the right answer, this is not the answer that somebody who was raised in the in I don't know, in UK, for instance, this is not how they would reply to the same question. So I think it's very interesting. It's a very interesting game
Yeah.
to make people realize, yeah, how different we are.
Yeah. And communication is indeed very important because the problems that we have to deal with are becoming more and more complex, and we need a group and a team to solve them. And so we need to communicate. In the past, I remember there were really still jobs where you could say, okay, he's an expert, he's not very good in communication, so it's okay, we can put him just here and he does only that. But today there are almost no jobs anymore where you don't communicate. You have
Yeah.
to communicate.
But what's funny is that if you go through job offers on anywhere, uh, like 90% of these jobs would say, okay, so the candidate should have uh, good, great communication skills. But nobody teaches us that. And nobody tells us that, you really have to learn about yourself in order to communicate better. So, la la la.
Yeah,
I think,
communication is not only the words you tell.
yeah,
That's only the tip of the iceberg.
exactly, exactly, yeah. And yeah, it's there's this amazing TED talk. I think it's called 101 Communication Techniques or something like that, and is there's this guy from Zagreb, I think, that gives this speech, and he insists at some point. But the way he does it is really amazing because he talks about how paraverbal communication, so like the tone of voice, the speed, so everything changes the message. And then at some point he's doing this exercise, so he talks in front of the audience, and then at some point, and now when I speak like that, you will pay more attention because it triggers. So
Changes the
everything,
rhythm, the tone of voice. Yeah.
everything, it triggers a certain reaction in the audience. But it's the same thing in a meeting room, because a leader who doesn't um, value communication, let's say, or doesn't who is not aware of how it could impact. I mean, sometimes it's not even about saying the word, but sometimes you can dismiss a person by simply ignoring the person or inviting that person to speak with some kind of dismissive gestures, and that's it. You could really block somebody's creativity forever, simply because you didn't take enough care of communication. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah, yeah,
think,
I agree.
yeah.
Oh, really interesting. It's an interesting topic. And so if one of the listeners thinks, yeah, I would like to improve my communication, of course they can take a course with you, and we will put your website and everything in the show notes. But where should they start? So if somebody says, I realize I have to improve my communication skills, how or where do I start?
Well, I think that the reason I do it in groups of people and for groups is because I think it's very important to have this kind of group pressure. It changes. when we are ourselves in front of a mirror, um, or alone in our heads, it's very easy to believe everything that we say. It becomes a bit difficult to be honest, because we want to believe what we say. We want to believe that, okay, I do have, like, to to start with, somebody who says I have a communication problem, it means that something happened, something triggered that problem. Maybe that person realizes that nobody listens, truly listens to him or to her, or maybe I don't know, maybe he thinks that, or she thinks that the message is very clear, but then the result is completely different. And so I think that first uh, comes knowledge. What is communication? What are it's like
You mean knowledge, also
about
self
I
knowledge, or
I think about communication first,
okay.
because it's very. This is a different a further step, I would say, because first of all you need to understand, okay, but how do I communicate? Me, do I do a lot of gestures myself, and I know that not always. I So I think that the ideal is to understand first of all how that person communicates. Do I have a good diction when I speak? How do I choose my words? Um, okay, I have this little story that it's very interesting, so I will tell it, because I think wording is so important. Actually, I have a lot of stories, but this one is
Pick
yeah,
one.
because. I always think that storytelling is something that really gets to people, because it's easier to follow. So um, there was this, you might know it. There was this little boy in the late 50s in Detroit, and he was 5 or 6 years old, and his name was Stevland Morris, and the boy was born blind. So his teacher one day in school says, Stevland, I hear a little mouse in the classroom, and you should help me find the mouse. And everybody was very surprised, because he was the only one who was blind. I mean, why would a blind kid help the teacher find the mouse? So Stevland immediately found the mouse, and then the teacher told him, you have amazing ears. Your hearing is, you are gifted. You are a very, very gifted little boy. And the little boy grew up and became Stevie Wonder, which is one of the greatest musicians of our of the history. So, like, words are so important. So how do we use our words? How does that person communicate with words? Um,
Yeah, and we probably
and
all have someone who at one point said something to us that changed our lives.
Most probably, because there are so many stories like that. I heard so many stories, and um, we should also listen to that. I mean, sometimes people do say things to us, but we don't always necessarily implement or whatever. But when we are young, we are very um, easy to impress. So I think that's why it's also. But so this is, so understand how that person communicate. Um, what is it that I say or I do not say? Do I put 3 exclamation points in an email when I'm angry? Because that is communicating frustration and anger, and that's what triggers in the other person some feelings that are
Yeah.
not very good. So so understanding, I would say, is the first step, and then reading about it. There are tons of materials about how we communicate, and then when you understand how you communicate, you can ask yourself, why do I do that? Why do I communicate this way? I don't know, am I okay? Maybe I'm going through some very difficult time in my life, which is, I mean, I remember once I had a colleague at work, and she was, at some point, she was simply impossible. And actually, she was going through a divorce. But nobody, I mean, of course you don't arrive one day at work and, hey, you know what, I'm getting a divorce because whatever. So you don't say that, but it reflects in the way you communicate. And yeah, I think it's important to first
Yeah.
understand and then start to ask yourself why, and go from there.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. So where
Yes.
can people find you then?
So I am on rephrase.com, the website, and yeah, everything is there. For instance, right now I have uh, a conference coming up. I'm very excited. In May, I will be speaking at the Change and Transformation Conference. It's an UK conference, and but yeah, on Rephrase by email.
Great.
So yeah,
Great. So it was really nice getting to know you and
same
listening to you
here.
about communication. I hope the listeners got a lot out of it as well.
I
So
hope so.
again, it's about understanding knowledge and also going deep into yourself
Yes,
to become a better communicator.
yes, and be curious in general, because I think that we
And
can
be
learn
curious.
so.
Yeah, you're not the first one either to say that. And be curious is so important, and not have all the answers, but continue to stay open to,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Yes. Well, thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really love the energy of Miruna. And let's see each other in our next episode. Don't forget, leave me a review, it really helps me, or just simply subscribe to this podcast if you want to receive the next one automatically.